Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Halloweekly for Not Bravo's Halloweekly's Top 100 Scariest Horror Movie Moments from apparently 2008 till like yesterday.
Your continued string of excellence with that title is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah,
I can't.
2 years of practice does
That was really good.
does quite a bit. Coming in at 90. Dun, 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 dun. Grandma's cookies don't taste like they used to. Dun, 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 dun.
You know what's crazy is that the first time we recorded this, when you did that music, because I know the Bravo countdown so well, I didn't catch that you're just doing porno music now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just dark porno music. It's like if who's the guy from Nine Inch Nails who's doing all the music?
Trent Reznor?
It's like if Trent Reznor made porno music.
Well, this is going to be fitting for one of my choices down here, which I'll flag later. But go.
All right, number 90.
Yes.
The Visit.
M. Night
Shyamalan.
Yes.
And I think this is sort of his comeback movie. And there's a lot of good scenes in this one. A lot of great scenes. So many scenes. But I'm going to go with...
There's also one absolutely god-awfully terrible scene.
One poo-poo scene. I'm going to go with the hide-and-seek scene under the house.
You have to.
I remember... First of all, I hate being chased.
Yes.
I hate being chased. Alex and I had a long conversation of, like, what scares you? And I think someone watching you, glowing eyes, and being chased. And there's a lot of chasing in this one. And grandma quotes.
Yes.
The way she moves freaks me out.
The fact that she's down there at all freaks me out. All of that is bad news. It was weird because the scene is filmed. First of all, until you re-showed me the scene, I totally forgot this was a found footage movie.
Same, I did too.
This is a really, really well done found footage movie. But also, I didn't realize until I was watching it that these kids are down there, and it seems like almost like The Outsiders, or like it could just be kids, like a coming of age story, and then it just turns into Last Exorcism all of a sudden. Like, what the hell is she doing down there?
You know what's funny is I still think because M. Night's known for the twists.
Yes,
right. This was the one film where we spoiled the twists for ourselves, and it made the movie 1,000 times scarier. Because getting chased by your grandma, who's probably sundowning, is scary enough.
Right.
But when you watch it knowing that's not grandma,
yes,
it's 10 times. It's weird. Like, a lot of people say, don't spoil movies.
Yep.
For this one, spoil the shit out of it, then watch it. It's probably the only case.
It was weird because I don't know that I was spoiled on this movie. I know you were going into it, but I don't know that I was. And I think I wasn't that impressed with the twist. Mm-hmm. Either way. It was pretty good, but like it's M. Night, so he has to run. It's not his fault, but he has to like really nail it to be, whatever.
You mentioned something rewatching the scene, and I didn't even think about that. And it's crazy because we did just rewatch this, but you were like, it's the Jurassic Park raptor scene.
Yeah, it's the Jurassic Park raptors in the Jurassic Park kitchen scene, where they're hiding in the stainless steel cabinets and like whatever. It's even the same geography because they're like on straight grids.
Yeah, it's like
they're and then the kids separate, but then they're trying to help each other, but they don't want to call out to each other and reveal their positions, which is exactly what's happening in the Jurassic Park scene, like to a T. It's really weird. So
the first time you see Grandma coming around the corner, she's like galloping and her hair's flopping around, and it's so unnatural and unnerving. And rewatching it, I don't think there's like some big musical cue where like it scares you with like violin string or something like that.
Right.
It's just the fact of someone chasing you is inherently scary.
Yeah, and it turns out like that famous spider walk that was taken out of The Exorcist, that movement is just inherently creepy because she's not upside down or backwards or whatever, but she's moving like that, and it's just really frightening.
Also, grandparents chasing you. Oof.
Yeah.
But the
and the kids, the fact that one kid doesn't know that all hell is broken loose.
He's like,
that
she didn't even see me. She's like, I don't give a fuck.
That dynamic, because that kid is doomed because he doesn't even know that something's coming.
The
for him.
impending doom is great.
It's really good.
It also has one of my favorite things that I wish horror movies did a lot of time is when the monster is in the background out of focus and then runs into focus.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that happens, it's so unnatural because the camera, the lens just distorts it, so you just see this weird wobbly thing moving, and you know what it is. Gets me every time.
And then the way the scene ends is super profoundly weird. And
depending on what you're into,
right? And then, now that I have this Jurassic Park analogy, I'm never going to look at the raptors
double cheeked up. At the end,
see a raptor quite the same way.
That's actually a really powerful thing about that scene is how how absolutely horrifying it is being chased underneath it, and then it ends with a grainy ass shot, and the whole theater went from being terrified to just a communal. Ugh! It's beautiful. It hits you.
They had no idea. M. Night was just setting him up for the unbelievable bad taste later.
He was like, "You have no idea what you're
no idea."
Granny double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
Gross.
All right, transition. Down. So I'll just do the music. Down. You know what's funny? I can't do. I could hear there's like a stringy instrument type sound they used in Bravo
that you're not duplicating.
That I can't. I don't know how to duplicate.
Right? No, I know.
All I got's the cheesy porn drums. Okay.
Yes. All right. So number 89 is Last Shift. I don't know. I'll find the year for this movie, but it's the police station that's been decommissioned, and there's someone who has to look over it for the last, the day before it's getting demolished. So she's basically alone in this outpost, like kind of holding down the fort. And she's a rookie cop, and she's expecting the most boring night ever. And then as shenanigans happen, she thinks she's being pranked, which is, you could totally see officers go guard this station that nobody cares about all by yourself, and then showing up to prank you later. That just seems like
find the left-handed screwdrivers.
The kind of hazing that would happen. Although weirdly in this one they dropped this hint that the evidence lockers haven't been cleared out, so they're like, go guard it. There's probably like 100 tons of cocaine.
Some cold case
like, we're just gonna knock the building down later. Anyway, this movie is absolutely terrifying. It is one of the few movies where when people are like, oh, horror movies don't scare me or whatever, I can recommend this and feel like I have a decent chance that they're actually going to get that feeling they got when they were kids and this movie scared the crap out of them. So it's got a lot of really scary moments. And arguably, I'm choosing the wrong one because I think the end moment is really haunting, even though it's not particularly scary because it's more depressing than anything. Mm-hmm. But there's a really, really great moment where she's kind of alone in some cabinetry that this scene you haven't seen, but she gets like ring girled, and it's terrible. It's just terrifying. But the moment I'm picking is the moment where she gets trapped in a jail cell, because the thing is, I'm picking this moment because this is just like a desperate call from the wilderness to horror directors that sometimes you just don't need all that much to do this really well. Like this scene consists of two characters, a flashlight, and half the scene you can't see anything that's happening, which is funny considering one of the movies I know you chose here in a minute. But like it's just an incredible masterclass in like staged spookery, right? Like the first thing is slamming doors, you don't know why, and the second thing is there's a threat that you think is a threat, but it's actually not a threat. The guy, you don't know this, you haven't seen the whole movie, or maybe you remember for the watch party, I think you did see it, but like that guy that's in the jail cell with her, he's trying to get the hell out of there because he knows the place is haunted. She thinks he's resisting arrest because he's just an asshole. But he's particularly motivated to resist arrest because being arrested is the only thing worse than being arrested is being arrested and thrown into a haunted jail, right? So like he's really trying to get out of there. She thinks he's really making her day bad, So she thinks he's the threat, and then all of a sudden her flashlight rolls and the jail cell goes dark and the flashlight gets up and she's got this whole dialogue with him like, give me my flashlight back, whatever. And all of a sudden the flashlight just swivels and shows that the guy that she thinks is holding a flashlight is still in the corner where he left her. And then you're like, wait, who's holding a flashlight? And then it gets really intense with an absolutely delicious jump scare right at the end of the sequence before she gets out of the jail cell and gets back to semi-normal for a minute. But anyway, I think the scene is absolutely terrifying.
It's scary. It's scaring just watching it on YouTube.
Yep.
And what's funny is I've seen this film get a lot of praise for just being like a balls to the wall, I'm gonna scare your pants off movie, but it also genuinely feels like it's a pretty underrated film in terms of whenever people ask in the group like, hey, what's a film that's gonna scare the hell out of me that I haven't seen? It's always Last Shift.
Yep.
So it's just crazy to have a film that is chock full of so many scary moments.
Well, and the weird thing is, you're right, but a lot of people say that, but they say it in terms of like it's scary, and I think we focus now on so much on the scary part that we underrate the actually how well executed, how good the acting is. It's really interesting because that lead actress has gone on to do Juliana Harkavy. She's done a lot of stuff, a lot of mainstream stuff now. She hasn't really stuck to the horror field that I know of. But this might have been her first performance, but it was pretty early on. But she's phenomenal in this. Like, you totally buy that not only you want to protect her, but then you want to protect yourself from her because she ultimately turns out to be a threat. It's a pretty amazing
Also, film. What's great about it is the monster designs are not cheesy at all. Like, they're actually very, very scary looking.
They actually are pretty disturbing and hard to look at. And, like, the Regan is hard to look at, vibe.
It's like a mixture of like Regan and like some Cenobites.
Yeah. Yes. Perfect.
And who wouldn't love that?
Nailed it.
All right. Dun, dun, chicka, da, 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 transition music. Da, 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 da. All right. Coming in at number 88 is people might have some questions about this, but we're gonna defend this one. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Spawn Ranch.
Yeah, this is a surprise. So the Spawn Ranch sequence.
Yeah, that whole. It's like, how long is that whole sequence like?
It feels like a mini movie.
It's like, feels like 10, 15 minutes.
This is definitely the longest scene we've chosen. We're going to choose for this countdown.
And honestly, I think does this scene have a jump scare in it? Does it have something that'll make you throw your popcorn up in the air? No. But what this scene does have, and what I'm going to be fighting for, is the fact that this scene is probably one of the most tense scenes I've seen. probably on our list. This is the first time. So for people who haven't seen the film, it's Hollywood, 1969. Brad Pitt plays a stunt double for Leonardo DiCaprio. He picks up this hippie that he's been seeing hitchhiking across town. He picks her up. She goes, "Oh, let's go to Spawn Ranch." He knows the guy from Spawn Ranch, and he goes there, and it's overran by a bunch of...
It's overrun by the Manson
family.
Right.
Yeah. And so then
if you have an infestation, that's one of the worst you can get. Is the Manson infestation.
So it's got a Manson infestation.
It does.
And he wants to go see his old pal, and then they start blocking him from seeing it. And he's like, "I'm gonna go see
yeah,
it."
so I want to hear how you fight for like whatever. I'm so glad this is on here. I'm so glad you picked it, and I can vouch for in the theater that this scene made me more tense than Quiet Place or most of the mainstream horror. Mm-hmm. And the Manson attack scene, until you realize that it's not going to end the way you think it's going to end, also made me that level of nervous. There's something about this movie where it's so anxiety inducing. And sometimes horror isn't a jump scare. Sometimes, like a Hitchcock sequence, it takes time to develop and build. And
well, the reason I picked it on here is, one, out of most of the movies we have on here, this one's probably got the best dialogue. But two, it's one of the first times where we had a character that I was so sure he could... I mean, in the movie, he kicks Bruce Lee's ass.
Yes.
Right? And when he goes there, it's just a bunch of dirty hippies.
Yep.
But it's the first time where I'm like, I don't know if he's going to get out of this one alive.
You feel... I legitimately felt like I was in a Psycho shower Marion Crane situation, that we were about to lose one of the main characters. It felt like he was not walking out of there.
It felt like that with like the vibes and the settings of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes. Yes, there's a lot of Texas in there.
And the whole thing I just think was super unsettling. It's not... Is it as scary as Last Shift?
I pound for pound, I think it's... I don't think the movie's scarier than Last Shift.
No.
But I think that scene, that sequence is scarier than the sequence I picked. I think I'm glad this is higher up on the list. I'll fight for this to the end. We don't have a lot of non-horror in our countdown,
Right.
by the way. Most of what we have is traditional horror, but spoiler, we have something way up high on the list that may be even more offensive to people than putting this on here. But the thing is, I don't care. Hitchcock is a horror filmmaker. He's not only a horror filmmaker, but he is definitely a horror filmmaker. And Tarantino is the same. People just don't give him the credit. He's like this generation's Hitchcock at this point, basically. So, when he does a big, long sequence like this, it's as nerve-wracking as the North by Northwest plane scene, or like the Psycho Marion escapes and gets chased by the cop, scene. All of that. That like this level of nervousness has a place in this genre, and it's the fucking Manson family. Get the hell out of here.
Well, I also love when they send the one guy on the horse to
Tex,
to bring Tex back to do whatever he was going to do to
right. Well, ultimately, Tex is obviously is the most notorious of the murderers from the actual Manson murders, so he should be a figure of fear. You don't know when you first meet him. When you first meet him, you should be afraid of him because you don't know how this movie ends.
He just reels a fucking donut.
But we can't walk out of this without just. I mean, one of the reasons this deserves to be on here is that Quentin Tarantino is using his considerable gifts to make this scene feel anxiety-inducing. So it's the backgrounds, it's the sounds, it's the production design, it's the dialogue, it's the where there's not dialogue.
I even got a headache
pacing.
looking at how hot that place must have been.
All of that is just the reason. The only reason to disqualify the scene, and the reason why a lot of people wouldn't have the scene on here, is that it ends in what's basically a joke.
Yeah, be getting punched in the mouth
with Bruce Dern. Well, no, all of the tension drains out immediately.
Oh yeah,
once you meet, but that's interesting. I can't think of like that horror flow where Jason's chasing someone and then you realize they got away and now that character bought himself another 5 minutes or whatever. But you're still nervous. In this one, as soon as you realize what's happening, the nervousness instantly deflates, and it's a really weird feeling.
The only way they could have ended it any differently is if he rolled over and showed a little ass like grandma.
No, gross.
In the visit.
Transition. All right. Coming in at 87 is 2010's Crawl prequel. Kidding. Burning Bright. The creature.
They're great.
The movie that I want all creature features to be when I see them, and then a lot of times, like with Crawl, they're not. So this is the tiger introduced into the house that's been battened down for a hurricane, man-eating tiger saga, which is just a really, really well done, terrifying, very simple, bare bones thriller. This is just one of those movies where there's no frills, there's no fucking around. I mean, Meatloaf's in this movie, for God's sake. But it's just so well done. But since this is a scariest movie moments countdown, I had to go with the laundry chute scene. It's the first scene I think of from this movie, and it's so well done. And I can't emphasize enough how much you care about this character at this point.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's sort of like, I don't know how the movie did it, but I was like Babadook levels of invested in her, nothing bad happening to her. Mm-hmm. So when the tiger chases her into the basement, and the only way out of the basement is to go up this laundry chute, and then the tiger comes down and doesn't know where she went. She went into the laundry chute, she's trying to go up it, and she's got no shoes on, I believe. So she's barefoot trying to make her way up a laundry chute quietly without falling into a basement where the tiger's just literally under the chute waiting. And then there's like this amazing Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise levitating into the safe moment where there's this bead of sweat that's just hanging off her nose, and she's trying not to and then it just drops, and the tiger sees it and smells it and just rages up into the laundry chute after her, and she's like scrambling and slipping and falling and making progress and not making progress, and this scene is delicious.
You wouldn't know from a tiger chasing you in a laundry chute that this is a really fun movie.
It really is. But it's also like kind of emotional, and then I love how the movie ends. I won't spoil it here, but it's basically a revenge rebound kind of movie, which is I love when those things happen. The odd thing is that this movie in one of the cool things about this movie is that in the span of one movie, it accomplishes the King Kong Godzilla arc. So, King Kong and Godzilla are fearsome when you first meet them. And then basically you're buddies with them by like franchise entry number 3, right? Like it's like King Kong's sons, Godzilla, you want to give him a hug. Like it's whatever. By the end of this movie, you are rooting for the tiger. You are full on rooting for the tiger. Like he goes from villain to like buddy by the end of this movie. It's like the raptors in Jurassic Park, like Blue or whatever. So the character arc of this tiger is absolutely phenomenal. But that scene, I can't watch the scene and not break out into a sweat or feel nervous or whatever. Even when you know how it ends, it's just so well done.
And the way they shot that scene too, like there's a lot of ways that you could really fuck up shooting a scene.
Total. Like oh my god, absolutely.
But they did it masterfully, just like the tons of close-ups on the tiger, and you feel claustrophobic. It was funny when I was rewatching it. Like I immediately thought back to like when me and my siblings were real young. There's a certain set of doorways where you could put your feet up and sort of climb up. And when you're a kid, like you could get up a couple feet and it looks like it's real high. And I just remember like the feeling of like when you start to slip.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that would be me. If I'm in the laundry chute, my palms are instantly sweating.
And it's like metal, not wood. Like you're screwed in there.
She's absolutely fucked. And what's funny is there's like Burning Bright and Rogue seem to be like the two animal creature feature type films that are like the gold bar that no one's quite been able to hit.
Well, for us, I mean, I'm not convinced.
I'm speaking for everyone. I emailed it. I gotta
maybe.
I got the world CC'd in the email.
Maybe, but I looked up Burning Bright trailer and it had like 48 views. So I'm not sure that this movie has penetrated the national.
Hipsters will love this. Let them
movie. But it's an amazing film. It really does what Crawl was trying to do. It sets up the hurricane with like it shows very little of it, but you really feel like it's there, and you don't feel like you got cheaped out of that. And then, like I said, the savage ending is just absolutely like incredible. Everybody that you want to die dies. And one thing that horror movies don't do well enough, Spielberg figured this out so early on, is part of the reason why you're so terrified for her in the laundry chute is the only other thing left in this house for this tiger to eat is a relatively helpless child.
Yes.
So if she goes down, that kid is going down next.
He's a lunchable.
There's no chance. So and that subconsciously. And when you get the stakes to that level in like a really simple thriller sequence, it's nothing better.
It's beautiful. All right, Don transition. What you can't see will probably kill you. Oh wait,
perfect.
What you can't see.
Wait. Oh shit.
No wait. If what can't see you will kill you.
Yeah, this is surprisingly hard to do.
Yeah, that's hard. It was a little inversion there. All right, coming in at 86. I was not breathing. Did you get that? Don't breathe.
Did you catch it? Don't breathe.
All right, so if you didn't see Don't Breathe, basically the cast from 13 Reasons Why breaks into... That's not right. That's not right. The cast from... one of the lead from 13 Reasons Why.
I would have paid money to see that.
They go to rob a guy's house. Turns out he's blind, and turns out he's fucking jacked.
Turns out
he's not putting up with your bullshit. G money.
Right, exactly.
This is a really
turns out they tried to rob a blind John Wick.
Yeah,
and that was not a good idea.
Imagine, that's a great way to put it. Imagine trying to rob a blind John Wick while Eddie Alvarez is in the background thinking of some gross shit and some nice gore to put you through.
Yeah.
He's such a good...
So which moment did you pick?
Okay, so the moment for me. Now, it's not the moment that if you've seen the film with the turkey baster and the baby gravy.
Thank God.
It's not that scene. I'm actually going with the first death scene with, I believe his name is G Money.
As he's known.
I think this movie sets the tone and the rhythm real hard, real fast. And you know what's funny? I also want to kind of wrap that into because I was trying to rethink of like what was the theater experience like and like how did I feel about it? And the closest thing I could get to was feelings of when we saw A Quiet Place. This movie in A Quiet Place makes you as a viewer like try to be as silent as possible.
Indeed.
And I absolutely love that scene where, like, ideally, if a blind dude walked in here right now, if Stephen Lang walked in here with a blindfold on, flexing, I think I could escape.
I don't.
You don't?
No, not at all.
Oh my god!
The only lesson of that movie is that you're wrong.
Yeah, no, it's true. You know what? I would be. I'm G Money.
Literally,
I'm G Money.
Literally, the lesson I can derive from that movie is that's wrong, and don't move to that wherever that is in
G-Money.
Detroit.
Okay, well, okay, so I would die like G Money, which is why I put it on this list here, because we rewatched this scene and I forgot that he acts. And you brought this up. He sort of G Money pulls a gun on our blind.
So Stephen Lang is right. He's trying to. They're there because they know something's really valuable in his basement. They don't know what it is, and it turns out that they were better off not. Well, they were better off knowing. But anyway, they had gotten the padlock off, and they were getting there, and then all of a sudden, he arrives on the scene in his own house, and he's like, obviously he's detected that something's wrong, and the guy holds a gun on him. He goes, "I just wandered here by accident. Like,
I was drunk.
I was drunk, and just let me go." And then they're not fooling this guy for a second, whatever. So he figures it all out. He steps on a door hinge. He knows he's being robbed. And then G Money puts a gun straight to him and tells him not to move. And this guy, he's in the power position, and then 30 seconds later, he's the most helpless I've ever seen a character in a horror movie. Like he's bubbling and crying and can't move, and he's pinned against the wall. It's
Eddie Alvarez does gore really, like him and Ari Aster. Like they each have like their own thing. Like Ari Aster has like crunchy corpses.
Yep.
Eddie Alvarez, I feel like it's like an anatomy class. Like there's just like there's because that gunshot. Oh my god, am I gonna have to reference the movie Milk again? What the fuck is this?
Yeah,
list?
this keeps happening.
There's something about gun violence that's just kind of gross. Anyways, when Stephen Lang grabs the gun back, pulls up to G Money's head, it's like I don't know how many frames, probably like 10 frames, 13 frames. His mouth glows from the flash of the muzzle of the gun. And you get to see like his
inside
teeth,
his mouth.
Inside his mouth.
He looks like a dragon from Game of Thrones about the
exactly. And it's just such a small detail that stuck with me.
That
all
shot
these years later
it really stuck with you because we have talked about this on the podcast before, and I know that shot stuck with you because you told me about it when we left the theater. Like you were like, you described it right, and that's just masterful filmmaking. Like when you do something that's original enough that someone just doesn't forget it forever. It's just genius.
I'm never gonna forget it. Oh, and then when he falls to the ground, his eyes are like looking at.
Yeah, that's a really good shot. That most horror movies are really disinterested in the bodies once they discard them.
Yeah, it's just they fall to the ground.
But he pulls out a real beautiful shot of this dead kid right after it happens.
Well, there's a theme here. Earlier, the movie that kicked off our list, Strangers Pray at Night, had a really good eyeball looking thing with the dead body.
True.
I think we're figuring something out.
That's true. You just do that. Add that to a scene, and you're golden.
Bravo, the top 100 list originally for me, like it was like a mini horror film school. I was like, oh well, this works. And now we're starting to get a thread here.
Yeah, exactly.
When you kill a body, do something weird with the eyes. Write that down. It's like Sam Raimi's
in
rules.
Movies.
Right? In movies. We've been watching a lot of Dateline.
Clarify.
Transition. Dun, dun, dun.
Coming in at 80-something is...
85.
is The Invisible Man. Probably the most recent movie on our list.
Last movie we saw in theaters.
Last movie, I see that online a lot, where that was the last movie a lot of people saw in theaters. Weirdly timed movie. This movie, I loved it from the jump, and now it has grown on me even more. Which is, like, when you know all the twists, I went back and rewatched it. I liked it even more. I'm choosing the dinner scene, and I'm just gonna say this right now. This is a massive spoiler, and don't ruin it for yourself if by some odd chance you haven't seen this movie yet. Just walk away right now and come back later.
We're putting this above the paint bucket.
The paint bucket scene. I rewatched it and it was really good, but especially since I didn't remember, there's just an incredibly cool shot from the floor up the attic ladder to Elizabeth Moss' haunted face up there, like she's the ghost in the house at this point. Now it's a creepy shot, but the dinner scene where Elizabeth Moss ostensibly kills her own sister in public is. First of all, the theater reaction was amazing to this scene. Like, it was one of those... It's one of the few times... Quiet Place did that, in some places where in the theater, and then I've seen some horror movies where jump scares will make people jump, whatever. But there was like literally there was someone sitting near us who like was just like, "What the fuck?" like out loud, like it just the movie wrung it out of their neck, like. But there's this amazing moment where the Invisible Man has snuck in. Elizabeth Moss is telling her sister, "I finally have something to prove that I'm not crazy."
Does she?
That someone that can't be seen is actually stalking me. And the sister leans in, and that's one of the subtleties of the scene is they sit way back from each other because they have an adversarial relationship to each other. They don't really get along that well. And she's telling her, I know, and she's telling her like, I know, and her voice is going down. So they lean into each other, which is bad, but you don't know it's bad. And there's this we're being toyed with by the director. It's masterful because the server keeps coming up and being like, and then the sister keeps being rude, like, we need a lot more time, right? But like, they're when the server shows up, they're recoiling from her. So like their body language in chairs is amazing. Like the fact that he got like body language dynamics in a scene where only one person was moving and two people were in chairs is incredible. But they're both leaning forward, and just when they're leaning forward close enough to be plausible, the Invisible Man picks a knife up off the table, slits the sister's throat, and then puts the knife in Elizabeth Moss's hand. And it is genius.
The reveal, like the moment of, it's sort of like, I'm not gonna stoop to comparing it to a roller coaster. I gotta think of something better than that. The moment when it cuts back to the sister and the knife's floating.
Yep.
Like it felt like the air was sucked out of the room.
Yep.
Because everyone was like, "Fuck," and then the inevitable happens.
And you felt like you were in a safe place.
You're in public. You're in public. You're fine. Tons of people.
That's one of the genius things about this film that I really respect is it used what's part of the story, which is no one's believing her because it's so hard to wrap your brain around this thing.
Yeah.
Right? There's a scene later where the Invisible Man is just like massacring like the cops, like Keystone Cop style. Like he's just killing one after another. And more cops keep coming in and they see dead cops everywhere. And still, they don't believe it. Like Elizabeth Moss, like they're right behind you, and they're like, "Who? What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? What the hell are you talking about? There's dead people everywhere. Like there's something badly wrong in this, but no one can grasp. Like you just can't see it. Like our brains aren't built for that.
And the fact that they took, when you think of the Invisible Man, you think of Claude Rains,
right?
And you're like, okay, it's a great movie.
And
amazing designs.
Yep.
Made it brutal. Made it scary. I mean, this movie if it wasn't called The Invisible Man, it would just be called Paranoia. Because the whole time, this movie, I feel like you need to get a W-2 and a paycheck at the end of this movie because you're putting in so much work.
It's true.
You're putting in so
Clock
much
in the
work.
background.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
You're always looking at the background, and so by the time, it really helps put you in the same view as Elizabeth Moss because like you're just kind of like you're slightly drained from just constantly looking.
That's exactly right. And
I love this director.
It's such a good point for that. And I just got to give a shout out to how cleverly this gets called back at the end. Because remember, he goes the same way, and that's on purpose. And there's this amazing grace note where Elizabeth Moss is acting, because that's the problem with abusive, toxic like masculinity is everyone forgives it in life. So you think you're crazy because it's a popular person in the world, and then they're treating you like shit, and you're like, how is this dynamic, like whatever. And the movie catches this perfectly. But when she walks out and leaves, I just caught this on the rewatch, and I can't believe I didn't catch it in the theater. She walks out, she leaves, there's this great shot, Parasite-esque house, and she's like just staring out at the ocean, and then she closes her eyes, and the movie ends. And the fact that she hasn't been able to close her eyes for 2 hours.
Wow.
And that she lets out like this sigh and then closes her eyes and then the movie goes dark is so genius.
Wow.
That I can't even get over it, right? So like, and I know there's more details in that dinner scene because anyone who's clever enough to like do it this way has hidden more stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to even going back and seeing it again. Which is the ultimate compliment to a movie.
To his next film.
Absolutely.
Do you know what he's doing?
Well, no. What is he doing?
Wolfman.
Oh, right. Yes.
He's just going to check off the universal
and Upgrade
list.
Was amazing. Like, he's on a roll.
I'm going to have him on the show.
Let's do it.
Just transition. You know what? If we do get on the show, I'll take this. I'll transition to the interview. That'll be some fucking 4D chess.
That'd be so
little
badass.
manifesting. Okay. Don't get choked up. In space, no one can hear you joke.
Because no one can hear you gag.
No one can hear you gag. Okay, coming in at 84. This list is so fucking good. We have Life. The movie that when we left the theater, we were like, is this like an instant classic?
Right.
And I think it is. And rewatching this scene, I need to like plug my nose into this just to talk about this scene. Okay, so to give you guys the background of Life, bunch of astronauts in space. They capture, I believe, a little microbe from Mars.
Yep.
And they name it Kelvin, and he starts to just grow rapidly. And he's all muscle and all nerve.
And all brain.
And all brain. Yeah, he's just like the ultimate...
He's a genius, serial-killing starfish.
He's the Blob. Like, imagine, like, the Blob that went to Harvard.
Makes sense, because the guy he's named after is an intellectual. So that's totally...
God damn. But this movie, the scene I'm going to go with, a lot of stars. Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
I guess two.
Rebecca Ferguson there too, I think.
Was she in that?
I think. I don't quote me on that, but someone's in there.
There's some other people in there, but those, I mean, it's Ryan Reynolds. Right. I got to go with Ryan Reynolds' death scene. And for the only reason, this is the only movie. You know what's funny? I keep finding like little pieces of like, this is the only movie that does blank. Life has a very special gold star next to it for the only death scene that made me gag in a movie theater. And so... It's basically, it's kind of like a slasher in space. Calvin's going around killing people in various ways. Ryan Reynolds, who I think undoubtedly probably gets it the worst for my 90s kids. This is what my generation. Ask George if he knew this. The closest thing he could compare to was like a silly putty or some kind like that. Imagine Gak. All right, now imagine drinking Gak. Okay, and then your eyes swell up. That's how that scene goes down. It is the nastiest death scene I think we have on this whole list.
Yeah, it's hard to look at. Honestly, it's hard to look at, and the way it's executed is just really, really like well done, because you only have a few things in there. You have that glove, you have a scalpel, and then you have Calvin.
And you have Calvin. It's the way that Calvin like just slides into Ryan Reynolds' mouth. Yeah. Like he's like glued to his face, and you just see him going and he's trying to like do everything he can to swallow it. It's just
yeah, it's gross, and he basically eats him from inside out. So that's not.
And you mentioned what's funny is, so for me it's like the sounds, and for you mentioned it was when people's eyes start to bludgeon up and they start to like get real
like
red.
That lack of oxygen. Like anyone who's seen Total Recall, the end where their eyes are bugging out, or anytime they're deprived of oxygen, like their eyes get all bloodshot and then their head blows up. I hate that shit.
What is it about that hurts?
So
like
disturbing. I don't. It's just a disturbing feeling.
Any kind of pressure in my eyes hurt. I put on some eye cream the other day, and I pushed it like a little too hard, even though you're supposed to dab it. You know, it's a little. While we talk about the scariest death scene, let me give you some eye cream stuff. I mean, we rewatched the scene before doing this, and like I still like felt feelings about this.
Yeah, and I'll vouch for the fact that even in the theater, like you could tell that people were sort of skeptical, because the movie feels really derivative. It just feels like, why are we rewatching Alien? And then it really starts to distinguish itself. It doesn't really change the structure.
No.
It sticks to the structure. But the creature design and how they executed it and how they make the characters interesting, all of that is
we always talk about, like, I think Kelvin's like a great horror icon, but like the way we talk, like you and me, I think we came up with like our Halloweekly, like how do we tell if someone's a horror icon now? And it's basically like fan art.
Right.
I always think the more you see of a new creature in fan art, then it makes its thing. How the hell you draw Kelvin?
You don't.
What stage do you draw Kelvin? At the end, he's the size of a whole spaceship. You know what I'm saying? He's almost too good.
Yeah, my favorite incarnation of Calvin is when he's like that wispy, like he almost looks like the glove. Like,
yeah, and he's just like whoop, bloop, 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 and they're like, look at him, he's not going to murder us.
Right, exactly. No, I know but like this. I was personally more terrified by the scene that preceded the scene you picked, the scene where he catches the guy's hand.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
that was like I was more grossed out by the Ryan Reynolds scene, but I was more scared by like they caught his hand because it's the first kill. You don't really expect him to be killing at this stage when he's like the size of a shoe or less or whatever. But anyway, the whole it's excellent. The whole sequence all the way through is excellent.
I mean, what's funny is I was like, I'm gonna have so much to say on this, but like, it grosses me out so much. I don't think I can talk about it that much. So
Yeah, just go watch it and don't eat.
yeah, you know, eat and then watch it. I dare you.
Oh, gross.
I dare you. Transitions.
Bad plan. Transition.
Ugh. Okay.
All right, coming in at number 83 is 2016's Nocturnal Animals, Tom Ford. I know I said that this list didn't have a lot of non-horror on it, and I lied. No, it mainly doesn't. I've seen the whole list. Most of it is horror, but it makes sense in 100 moments countdown.
And we wanted to honor the Bravo thing.
Right, yeah, exactly. I understand, but I'm going to fight for this scene hard because, and I don't know that I even have to. I think anyone who's seen this is like, oh yeah. But so Tom Ford did Nocturnal Animals. This is a really interesting movie because it's in, like I was telling Nick before we started recording, it's in the analogy or metaphor movie kind of universe where Mother, I think, is a particularly like ham-handed use of this, right? Like,
Yeah.
like in
Which
the
is funny considering our list.
in the analogy part, but because everyone's like a religious metaphor in that movie, they're not really people. They're not people you would ever come across in life. They're basically like it's basically like Mr. Deuteronomy rolled up, but. And then the ultimate, I think, masterful expression of this is Parasite, where that movie was definitely a metaphor for something.
Yeah.
But like all you cared about was the story and the characters, and that's what was important. And the metaphor, was just got snuck in because he's a genius. Right in the middle ground of that is Nocturnal Animals, because this is a metaphor movie. It's a revenge movie, but it's also an artistic kind of like independence metaphor movie. So there's a lot of that going on there, but. There's a scene in this movie where there's a family that gets abducted right out of the nose of their husband and father, who was played by Jake Gyllenhaal. And this scene is like the baby, I'll kill your baby scene from Zodiac Hitchhiker scene. It's like that, except for realer. And I would argue just as scary. Like this scene is absolutely terrifying because the villain in the scene is doing the Heath Ledger Joker thing, being alternately friendly and evil. So it's like he's punching Jake Gyllenhaal in the face, like breaking his nose, and then a second later he's like, "Your nose looks pretty bad. You need tissue? You all right?"
It's like a slot machine.
Yeah, right.
He's like, "Hey, here's you want $1, and I'm going to take 4.
Right. I'm your friend again.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take all your life savings. Yeah. He's like,
Right.
So like he's doing that, but like unpredictably, inexplicably, and the characters clearly. The weird thing is, and I actually really like this because you don't get to see this in horror movies much. It's like they're trapped in the location of the scene on rubber bands. They try to leave, but then they sort of come back to the scene, and then they try to leave again, and they sort of come back, and it's because they can't really assess the threat. They feel like there's a threat, but then they feel like it might be okay, and then they feel like maybe being left alone here is worse than being with the people who are with you currently here, which is not the case at all, it turns out. Right?
Nope.
And then all of a sudden, and this is the glory of the scene, the family is trying to decide, like, who protects who, how do we circle the wagons, how do we fight back, and in a second, gone. They're gone. Like, just that fast, gone. Abducted and off to be murdered. And Jake Gyllenhaal just sees it, and you see in his face that he knows how badly he fucked up, not assessing the true threat level in this moment, and that he was never going to get it back. And you don't get to see that in a lot of traditional horror movies that much. The great ones you do, like in the George Romero or like The Changeling or those kind of movies. The Exorcist, definitely. But like that instant moment of,
It's a lost touch.
yeah, that you like you just lost everyone that was important to you, and you're not getting them back. And if you had just watched more horror movies, maybe you would have figured it out faster. But you didn't.
Well,
so
I
you
mean, watching this scene, like, it's so funny. Like with superhero movies and video games and shit like that, you're always like, just go, just start fighting them. But like in reality, you're just gonna get your ass beat. Like, but in reality, I think Jake Gyllenhaal
Could have taken the guy. Yeah.
He's like fucking crazy. Dude. He's like jacked and shit. He could have just started swinging. No, but it's a horrifying scene, and it's one of those things where like, you know, just watching that scene, I kept putting myself in that position. I was like, well, what if that was like my you know, Alex or like, you know, my family or something like that? Like, what the fuck would I do? And like, I mean, you think of a million different things, but it's just fucking scary. I shit my pants like that. Like, you're outnumbered, like in the middle of fucking nowhere.
You're outnumbered, and you're just not prepared by life because you haven't lived that kind of life. Like,
I didn't know what I did.
He's basically like a New York Times best-selling author. He's basically like a guy who smokes a pipe and writes like, you know, intellectual masterpieces. Like, he's not ready to
I do know what I do.
Throw down.
I know what I do.
Against carjacking villains.
There's no light. They're in the middle of the desert. I would just run to the desert and be like, run to the desert, find a spot, hide the shit out.
Well, they did that. They were off into the desert, and then they came back. That's what I'm saying is, like...
they came back?
It was just a really weird... It was a weird kind of, like... the true horror of that sometimes is that you can't assess the real level of threat until it was too late.
Right? Actually, I do know what happened. Alex would probably beat the shit out of all of them and save me.
That's probably true.
That's probably what happened.
Good moment to end on. Transition.
All right. Of no coordination at all and pure luck, coming in at 81, it's Mother, the movie we just referenced for analogies.
Indeed.
Well, I'm not picking it for its analogy, luckily. I got
your scene is a metaphor. It's just
it's a metaphor, but it
also incredibly disturbing.
What would the Bravo thing be for
what
this
would
one?
the correlation to that? That's a good question.
So Bravo would be like,
that's a good question.
I want my baby back ribs.
Oh my god.
That's what it would be for this scene.
Oh my god.
Oh, I need
Bravo would not.
I need to get baptized after that one.
Oh,
I think there's a few angels mad at me about
that.
Yeah. So Mother, Arnofsky, I always botched that.
Sure.
A film that was a very divisive movie.
Yes.
Like down the fucking middle almost.
Yep.
The scene where the plot is the Bible. You heard of it? That's an easy one. You're so good at explaining them, and I'm not. And I was like, oh, I can just say it's the Bible.
Yeah,
so,
you don't need to.
Yeah, there we go. Like it's the Bible.
You don't need to go anymore.
There we go. Jennifer Lawrence gives birth to baby Jesus, and the crowd. It's such a weird movie. She gives birth to baby Jesus. All of a sudden, people grab the boy and they start hoisting him, taking him, and she's screaming, "I want my baby! I want my baby!" And honestly, I there's certain people who become like. I don't think people talk about how good of an actress Jennifer Lawrence is. Like, we all know she's a great actress because she's so popular, but like when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, like holy fuck.
Yeah, because what's happening here is fucking ridiculous.
It is talent,
but she grounds it.
It is.
She sells it.
You feel the anguish in her screaming, "I want one." Plus, I also think a mother screaming for her child is always going to be fucking horrifying, no matter what. Like Alex and I just last night were watching Cold Case Files from like 1998. It's on Netflix at 15 episodes. It's great. But there was an episode where this mother's daughter was outside the kitchen door, like 3 feet from her door, and this one guy just on a random rampage grabbed this girl and then like raped and killed her.
Oh, gross.
And then she was crying about her daughter, and like it like we had to end it. We were like, okay, we had to put it in the office. So that feeling of a mother losing her daughter is always scary.
Yes.
But what's worse is the baby's neck snaps, and it's like the way it's filmed and the way the neck snaps.
The sound is terrible.
It's like you just feel it in your ribs, like ah.
Yep.
And then, if it couldn't get any worse. They decided to eat so I don't know. I didn't go to church. What's the symbolism of like this part right here?
I mean, they basically are doing communion, but they're doing it with
let's
say
core.
Organic matter.
The Whole Foods version,
right? So it's pretty repulsive. But you know, I mean, it goes all the way. He doesn't hold. The director of this does not hold back.
You see the rib cage and
look like, and you know, a lot of horror fans complain that directors pull punches, and this movie doesn't pull many punches here like that. I mean, it shows you what it shows you. My problem with the scene, I love the scene you picked because I know that it's arguably emotionally impactful. My problem with it is that this movie, you know, there's some movies that have like these turns that are legendary, like Dusk Till Dawn.
Right.
You're not in the kind of movie you thought you were in if you went in without spoilers, right? This movie, all of a sudden, I was in a really delicate metaphor, like, Cannes Film Festival kind of movie, and then it went Saving Private Ryan. There's like 12 minutes that look like a military assault in this movie.
Dude, I forgot about that scene.
Precede the baby part. And by the time we got to the baby part, my senses were so... I had a headache. Because it was just like this loud music roar and then just this attack scene.
You know what it feels like?
That you couldn't follow anything that was happening in it.
Imagine if Disney was like, we're going to make a new ride to the Bible, but like, be honest.
Yeah, it is something else,
but it feels like that because like you're just constantly going through these weird things that are happening, and it has that Disneyland ride vibe of like scene to scene to scene.
Yeah, all those people in Sodom and Gomorrah didn't kill themselves. like there's a lot of bloodshed that's going on. Yeah, for sure.
But the way it happens though is it's because it sounds stupid to say a movie that movie is great when it goes scene to scene. All movies go scene to scene, but this one it just does it differently.
Yes,
and it's sort of like it feels like. Imagine it feels like I would walk through this door to the office, and it would just lead me to this same door into the office. Right, like that level of weirdness. Like, oh, I'm in a different place now, but I don't think I should be, but I am.
Yeah, that movie did pull that off a lot. That movie also made Michelle Pfeiffer creepy again. So just for that, I gotta give it some credit.
I love that movie. So, eating baby Jesus. I don't know. So hopefully, I think Bravo would go with the I want my baby back ribs.
I don't think Bravo would have this movie on a list ever.
Dun, dun, chicka, chicka, dun, dun. Oh, do you like The Strangers? Oui.
That's perfect.
There we go.
Perfect for this. Coming in at 81, right? Is Them, the French movie that I don't know, like, was this the same time as The Strangers? I feel like these movies came out around the same time. One might have inspired the other. Who knows? But this movie is, to my mind, better than The Strangers, which...
I remember you saying that and like me being like, oh, that's controversial.
Right, and well, it's odd because we put The Stranger sequel on our list. All right, so like it's not like I'm against this franchise, but Them is just an excellent movie. There are really, really well done sequences in here. There's scenes, strangely, that feel like the nail on the stairs kind of sequence in Quiet Place, like that level of tension, but with everyday objects in this house. But ultimately, the scene I'm picking is basically the ending, because the ending of this movie, guys, spoiler by the way, the ending of this movie is double terrifying. It's double-barreled terrifying, right? So first of all, the character that you've been following the whole time that you're hoping is going to make it is not going to make it. And is not going to make it in a really, really terrible way, because she's going to get caught in basically like a drain pipe or outlet pipe or something like that. She's going to think that she's getting out, and she's going to see sunlight, and she's going to get there, and it's gated in. And she's waving for help, and traffic's going by without a care in the world. And you can clearly see her there, and then she's just gone. And that's that. And it's like... is it Rec or VHS, whichever one ends with the character getting pulled back?
Oh yeah.
It's that kind of feeling. It's that kind of emotional, visual impact, right, from this moment. So that's terrifying. But even more terrifying, I think, is what the movie quietly does afterwards. Because then we just cut. Because now everyone's dead. Everyone that we cared about is dead. All the characters that the kids were torturing and playing with are dead, and now there's kids, so what are you going to do? And what are they going to do? They're going to go to school. So you just see them get their backpacks, like high-fiving each other, picking their bikes up, and then in silhouette, it's like the Losers Club. It's like you're just looking at these innocent kids, and they're just going down this windswept Parisian, like French, area with leaves blowing across it and feeling very like fall and atmospheric. And then this bus just pulls up and they just like pile in to go off to school. All these sociopathic little murderers, like whatever. And they're going to do this again because there's no evidence. They're not going to be caught. No one's going to suspect them.
Yeah, like spring break's coming up.
It is double barrel. So it's loud, terrifying with almost like the jump scare last character that you think might make it, doesn't make it kind of moment. And then there's just the quiet. It's the photo negative of what the original Nightmare on Elm Street did, where like it was sort of like this ending, and then there was this big ending they added to it with like the jump scare pull through the door, thing with the loud music. This one is the jump scare and then like the quiet, like, I mean, maybe the world's just inhabited with a bunch of little murderers.
Well, my favorite shot is when it pulls out and it just shows like the traffic above and below her, because it sits from an editing standpoint. Like for me, it sat for the perfect enough time for your gut to go, ugh. And I don't think I've seen that like
you're right,
any other. Like it is just the perfect amount. And the shot of the final girl, I guess we'll call her final girl, going down the tunnel is shot super well because she's sort of hazy or something like that. So you kind of get like her POV where like, she seems pretty tired and beaten up. And so when she's going down the tunnel, I was like, oh, there's going to be one of the kids at the end of the tunnel and she's just going to stab it and die. So I didn't even know that it was going to be the gated off thing. And the reveal of that, it's like, it'd be like getting out of a saw trap and you're like, I'm free. And then you look down and you got another saw trap at your feet and you're like, God damn it. So close. I was so close.
What a terrible feeling to get out of a saw trap to fall into a saw trap.
I know but that's what that felt like to me. And that sense of dread. Because that's the thing. It's part of the reason why I put Krampus on the list. Like some movies, this is why I think our Bravo list is going to be some kind of horror movie. You got to either go happy, Evil Dead remake, covered in blood. Hell yeah, I'm a survivor. Don't fuck with me. Or you got to be like this. You're going to have to call your therapist tomorrow morning because you're going to be feeling the blues.
It's true.
And that movie did it. Krampus did it. What other movie?
And that's like a lot of movies, you get that. It's weird because nobody thinks of emotions with the Final Destination franchise, but they always give you these really down, depressed characters because they're losing all their friends.
Yeah,
right.
That's a sad.
And it's that feeling of like whatever, and you get that feeling from this person because she's been through hell.
The other thing is I was trying to think of like there's something I wanted to say to elaborate on like why I think those endings are special when they're a lot of horror films they try to do like the bad horrible ending, but like. Usually like the writing sucks and so it just feels cheap and then the movie ends up feeling like, oh, me and my friends made a horror movie and it ends and it's so sick. Ugh. But then it never feels like that. I think it takes someone with like some kind of restraint or a brilliant screenwriter to be able to pull that off and to give you that gut because you can clearly undershoot
that's
that shot.
That's a great point because there are a lot of horror movies where you just feel like that last character you followed the whole time just gets gratuitously killed at the end because someone thinks that a horror movie can't show mercy, so they're just doing it.
Yeah.
It's not following internal logic of the story or the characters. It's basically just like, I'm not going to be the guy who ends a horror movie on a like someone living, thing.
Yes.
That's not why this movie, this movie was clearly showing you that there are categories in the world. There are people who don't know anything bad is happening. That was the traffic. There's the people who are vulnerable to be victimized. That was everyone who went down. And then there's the people who are killers who can be in all kinds of categories you don't expect them to be. And I think when you add up that layering of who's who and what the movie's telling you about that, it's just genius and well done.
This list, goddamn, dun. I wish I knew what we were.
I know
we're slightly modifying as we go down. We're like, is it really scarier than that? So I don't know what's coming up, but if I don't have a fun segue for that. What next time we record because we have to do 10 of these, I'll have an idea of w's next. That way
You'll have a lead off.
That way the audience can hear me.
So you can do the Bravo tease.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But we ain't got that, so time to start ending these bitches up. Until next time, stay scared, watch a bunch of horror movies. Talk to you guys next time. Bye.